The last thing I ever want to do, and I ever will do, is say, you must do this. I can pass on information and say, this is the way I do it, and this is how I think things can be turned around. But I would never say to people, you must absolutely do this because I say. What they must do is look at the situation we're in and come to their own conclusion. It's pretty certain now, I would say, that if people go on doing and responding the way they have, then nothing's going to change. It's just going to get deeper and deeper into dystopia. It's like that great line, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. So if people want this thing to continue, then they must continue to do what they've always done. But clearly, I would say, we're at a point where it's worth pondering on the fact that maybe we need to do something different to get a different outcome. And if acquiescing to power is the way we got into this mess, then not acquiescing to power has got to be the way we get out of it. But people will have to make those choices. I've made mine. I'll look this dragon in the eye and I ain't gonna blink.
This is what we came here for, folks. This is the moment. This is the big event. This is where the men get separated from the boys and people get to find out what they're made of. People get to find out what the quality of their metal really is. So don't be stressed over what's happening. And we're at a really, really significant and important time in history. And it's just going to get crazier yet. It's going to get more and more crazy for the time being. So just be prepared for that. Be prepared to hunker down and face the coming storm with serenity. Face infinity without flinching, and you're going to be good. Because we're going to come through this, and I think we're going to be in a much better world once we do. But it's a process. We've got to get rid of some of this baggage first. So, and the criminals have exposed themselves. I mean, I don't know anybody who trusts the mainstream media or the government or the police or any of these institutions anymore. And all these institutions should be dissolved. All of them. Our education institution, our medical institution, our legal institution, our judicial system absolutely needs to be dissolved. Our political institutions, all of them. All of these things are detrimental to anything that it means to be human. University teaches you one way of thinking, not allowed to think outside the box. Medicine teaches you one approach to medicine, not allowed to think outside the box. And it's all based on allopathic medicine and germ theory and all this crap, The plagiarist Pasteur, the plagiarist and fraud that he was. It's all based on that sort of crap. So, all these institutions need to be dismantled. The education system doesn't teach people anything that they need to know. It just trains them to be dumb and to accept authority and to accept anything the government says is true. It teaches them a completely distorted, fabricated version of history. So all of them need to be dissolved. All of them. And the thing is, with what's happening with this whole scam, all of them are being exposed. And the more the politicians push to try to get things in place, the more they expose themselves. I mean, this whole push for the quarantine camp in Queensland, this is just so they can incarcerate people like me. That's the approach they'll have, folks. That's the way they want to do it. But I think it's just waking people up. You can't have any faith in any of these institutions anymore. And that's what this has done. So in many ways, it's been a positive thing, folks. It's been a really positive thing. It's kind of kicking people in the butt and telling them that, hey, look, you've got to start taking a little bit of responsibility for yourself and for your life, because actually you need to know what it means to be you, because that's really what this is about. And if you don't know yourself, know what you're capable of, and you're not prepared to face infinity without flinching, no stake in the outcome, just do what needs to be done, then you won't make it through. You won't make it through. And that's what it's all about. It's a soul test, folks. As I've said, this is a soul test more than anything. Coerce you into compliance, put you in fear, and coerce you into compliance. That's what all this is about. Stay safe, stay strong, stay focused, stay empowered in Icke.
Being an entrepreneur, I was in the rock and roll industry. And back in the 80s, I started studying with a man named Dr. R. Buckminster Fuller, best known for the geodesic dome. So in '67, I hitchhiked from New York City to Montreal, Canada, to see Expo '67. And Buckminster Fuller's dome was the U.S. pavilion there. So Expo '67 was the World's Fair on the future. Fuller was a futurist. But I didn't meet him there. And then back in 1981, I finally met him in Kirkwood, California, on a seminar called The Future of Business. And so I studied with him 81, 82, and 83. And I was a hardcore make money entrepreneur. And one day Fuller asked me, he says, "What's your life's purpose?" And I said, "Make money." And how did I know that was the wrong answer? and he goes, "It's a waste of a good mind just to make money." I'm going, "What do you mean?" I thought we were supposed to make money. And he just challenged my paradigm, the way I looked at world and business. He says, "Why don't you do what God wants you to do?" I went, "What?" He says, "Look, humanity is evolving. And you have to ask yourself, what does God want done? Not what Robert Kiyosaki wanted done. What does God want done?" And he kind of scolded me in front of the whole class. I'm going, "So what's wrong with rock and roll?" He goes, "It's about you. It's your passion, but it's not God's purpose." So the question, I had to ask myself, what does God want done in the evolution of life? And it came to me is, I don't think God wants people to be poor. And today in the world, America especially, is this gap between the rich and everybody else. And I know the game of the rich. My rich dad taught me the game the bankers and the rich play is different than what they teach you in school. And that's the story of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. My poor dad, PhD, stands for poor, helpless, and desperate. They don't know anything about money. And they're teaching our kids. And my rich dad was an entrepreneur who never finished school. So all of the pieces of the puzzle, when Fuller scolded me back in '83, the pieces of the puzzle and my life started to come together. And I understood what he was saying then. He says, well, maybe we should stop ripping people off. It might be a good thing. And the question I ask all over the world, what does school teach you about money? And the answer is nothing. And that's not a mistake. That's not an accident. I knew that. Most people know that. But the way to keep the poor and middle class working hard is never teach them what the rich know. So if you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which came out in 1997, it's what the rich teach their kids about money, the poor and middle class do not. And I had already retired. I made enough money at 47, so I didn't have to work again for the rest of my life. And I said, now what do I do with the rest of my life? And so that's when I came out with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the cash flow game, because poverty hurts.